Gears 1 came out and it hit tremendously large for us. We were hoping it would be big. We were hoping the reviews would be great. We were hoping we'd sell a few copies, and our expectations were just completely blown away.
You make a game and you think, well, we're making a really good game. We love to play this game. We can't stop playing. We love it. We think it's great. But it's really the fans who decide how successful you're going to be. And we were extremely fortunate. We caught the right wave, and people loved the game, and we got great review scores, and you can't ask for anything better than that.
We were hoping for the best, and you know, kind of towards the end of the project, we were just getting really giddy and excited, and we really hoped that other people would feel the same way.
I wasn't terribly surprised with the success of Gears of War, only because of how fun it was to play as we were making it. It was more of a surprise that we actually finished it on time and at such a high level, because it was such a tight crunch that summer finishing the game up, but we knew we had something special there.
I think in gaming, it seems like it's a roll of the dice whether something's going to be good or not. But once I came here to Epic and saw the talent and saw the effort and the attitude and the love people put into what they were doing, you know, in a sense, I wasn't really surprised. I mean, everyone's here to do their best and put their best into their work, and it really shows, and I think it showed in Gears 1.
With Gears 1, we could try a bunch of new stuff. People didn't have expectations about what does a shotgun do, etc. But with Gears 2, everything you change now has a following, and people are far more religious about, you know, their preferences with these things as they've been exposed to them for far longer.
With Gears 2, yeah, there's a pressure to deliver a new experience for fans that are out there, that you want to keep them happy and you want to keep them engaged. But at the same time, you kind of know you have the core mechanic figured out. You kind of know that at the end of the day, your game is going to be fun. The question is, can you just deliver that new and exciting part that will keep people engaged?
The first Gears was very much kind of a summer blockbuster type of a narrative, and the sequel is, of course, that kind of roller coaster ride. But at the same time, we're digging in a little bit deeper on the story to really get to know who these guys are in Delta Squad.
We wanted to open the game kind of with a recap, as far as just reminding the player of what's at stake, what the situation is with the world, and we have the character of Chairman Prescott, who's delivering this kind of rousing speech to all the Coalition soldiers. The stranded are listening in on it.
War is all we know. In the past, we fought for emulsion. We fought for country. We fought for freedom. But all that changed after E-Day.
There are certain elements of the speech that were really important to me to convey, because I felt like, you know, the thing that people don't tend to do is they don't tend to do the math. Right, is that we talked about the Pendulum Wars as a 79-year war, that at the point of the Gears 2 starting, they've been fighting the Locust for 15 years now, right? So now we're talking about 94 years of conflict. That's essentially an entire generation that has never known peace. That if you can imagine a world, not like a World War I, World War II, we're talking about a planetary war that has gone on for like 94 years, essentially. So this is what kind of culture is that? What kind of life is that, where you're expected to go into the Army? And it's all that kind of backstory that I don't think people had, a frame of reference they didn't have, and that's what I really wanted to come out of the speech, is this notion of, hey,
all the time.
Yeah, you know, and the fact that just that's going on, that people can speak to, that we have never known a time of peace, I think is a really important aspect of the backstory of the world.
Originally, we did talk about, you know, doing Hoffman delivering the speech, and that didn't really quite work out, and I think that's what gave us a lot of this, you know, whole iterative process on it. And when we came up on the character of the chairman, which is something we'd cycled on but hadn't decided on, once we had him, and it took a minute to cast the right person, once we had that in place, things got considerably smoother.
It's interesting to see more about how the leadership structure of the Coalition is kind of built, as well as how the Locust leadership pans out, and to kind of see these layers of, you know, what's really going on in this war and who's responsible and who's leading the people.
Right away, these guys came with, as I came onto the story, was the Maria, and I think has become kind of the anchor in a lot of ways for the human part of the story, because we have this big macro story, this larger war that's going on with humanity and the Locust. But then I think it's really great to have this anchor with the Maria's story, and inevitably there's some dark parts to that.
Dumb.
There's nothing darker than a man finding his significant other completely incapacitated and then having to do the only thing he can. And it's really heavy stuff, and watching the scene to this day still gives me chills.
Well, and it's interesting because as we shoot this, we have no idea what really everyone's reaction is going to be to it, and I think that's going to be really interesting to see, because I know it's going to be something that's going to be talked about, and it's not something you see hell, even in any media very often, especially visual media, let alone a game.
You know, having the sort of the best friend role go through the deeper moment, because it's kind of more interesting for the player to witness it as opposed to, you can't push that on, you know, onto the player to say, okay, this is your experience.
You miss your wife, don't you? You're like, really, what? In your head.
It's easier to make him be a witness, and at the same time, it is nicer to take a second, you know, pseudo-secondary character like Dom, and sort of raise their importance in the story. Is really, I thought was really cool too.
Writing for this medium is extremely tricky. We're still feeling out the ways that we can create a world, and it's not like a linear medium like television or film where you just go and shoot and like, okay, here's the 100-page script and you're done. You have to consider, how is this line being delivered? Are the characters walking around in the world? Is it a cutscene? Is it like a piece of dialogue over a loudspeaker? And we have so many different colors in our palette with which to paint the narrative, and there's not a lot of people in the world that can write for this medium.
You know, games are an art form, something that we're all proud of, that we've put a lot of time into, that it's that time, I think, to where things that can really, a story in a game can last the test of time. I think, you know, you have a lot of games from a Half-Life 2 to a BioShock most recently that, you know, people talk about it. I mean, when the story affects people.
We have about a little over 40 cinematics that we're working on, that we've gone through the entire process of mocapping and preparing and getting together for Gears 2. Once we get a script, we'll look over the script, decide how we can make this work in a scene, and then once we've kind of narrowed it down, they'll usually go and have the voice actors record the audio.
Cole, Baird, stay here and guard the Centaur. Dom, you come with me.
Marcus is a badass sergeant. We find out that he's been basically a soldier that was put in prison for whatever he did, and he's back out now as a gear again because they need him. What's interesting about building on this character, you know, from the first game to the second game, it's just different because we just see him growing. We see the relationship between himself and Dom and Cole and Baird. Everybody in the crew that, you know, you didn't really get to see before, and it's just it's a little bit more intricate a plot line. You know, there's a lot of different stuff going on, and I think emotionally for the character, it's a lot more.
Hang in there, Rook. We'll be there soon. Let's go find Carmine.
When you build a character, it's got to come from the ground up. So it's, you know, there's all sorts of things that come together. So yeah, it's the description, it's the picture, it's the, you know, it's the attitude. It's just like, oh, okay, and you just piece it all together and you kind of throw it together. And it's funny because I had the feeling you're going to ask me about was there any other voice that I tried with it, and really there wasn't. There wasn't. It just seemed like this guy needed to be, that was it. Right here, you know, boom, taking care of business. And that's just kind of where I went with it.